What's going on, everybody? This is Derek J407 here to give you my thoughts on WWE Tables, Ladders, and Chairs TLC 2018 live from the SAP Center in San Jose, California. A show overall I felt was pretty solid. Not perfect by any means, not one of the best shows of the year, but it was a pretty good show. The last pay-per-view of the year, bringing the total WWE pay-per-views this year to I don't know, feels like we've had, about 14, 15, maybe 16, some crazy number like that. But, it was definitely one of the better ones, but, not the worst. But, after weeks of pretty subpar television on Monday Night Raw, and to a certain degree SmackDown, although SmackDown is infinitely better than Raw, but I think it does get kind of graded on a curve because of how shitty Raw has been, but hopefully that's coming to an end this upcoming Monday night when Vince McMahon returns to shake things up. But, despite subpar television or god-awful television in Monday Night Raw's case, this show didn't make up for any of it, but it was okay. Have a new Intercontinental Champion in Dean Ambrose, have a new SmackDown Women's Champion in the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka, in a crazy TLC match, had an excellent WWE Championship match, probably the best WWE title match of the entire year, I might add. And a lot of other crazy shenanigans on this show. Of course, Baron Corbin no longer the GM. We'll get into all the stuff that happened on this show. Let's start off talking about the kickoff show. We had the Cruiserweight Championship on the line. Cedric Alexander getting his rematch against Buddy Murphy. Pretty good back and forth match between these two. I personally liked the Buddy Murphy-Mustafa Ali match from Survivor Series a little more, but these guys were kicking ass out there. At one point, Cedric managed to hit his lumbar check on Buddy Murphy, but Murphy got his feet on the ropes. So when Alexander went for it again, Murphy sidestepped him, and when he did, Murphy kind of landed face first into, I think it was either the middle or bottom post or bottom turnbuckle in the corner, and then Murphy hit Murphy's Law and got the win. So Buddy Murphy's still Cruiserweight Champion. And then also on the kickoff, we had the ladder match for a guitar between Elias and the almighty Bobby Lashley. Is that his name? Is that what Leo Rush calls him? All the different matches on this show, the Cruiserweight title match, all the other matches on the show that probably could have been cool if it had a ladder match stipulation. The ladder match stipulation was given to Bobby Lashley and Elias on the kickoff. So take with that what you will, but the match was nothing. Leo Rush tried to interfere a few times early on, but he was kind of thwarted off. Elias, he was pretty dominant for a good chunk of it, but Bobby Lashley showed his power too. He powerbombed Elias off of the ladder standing up in the middle of the ring and powerbombed him onto a ladder that was positioned in the corner of the ring. I mean, in the corner, in the turnbuckle area. But, Elias did that to Lashley. My apologies. He powerbombed Lashley off of the ladder into the ladder set up in the corner, and that led to him climbing up the ladder. Leo Rush tried to stop him, but he, knocked Leo off the ladder, and he climbed up and got the guitar. But then after the match, Bobby Lashley attacked him, hit him with the guitar, and Leo laid him out with a frog splash. So, despite winning the match, Lashley is the one to stand tall, which begs the question, why did Lashley lose? If he was just going to stand tall anyway, why did he lose? And so, this, furthers the storyline and the feud. Well, if you wanted to do that, why not just say, well, only reason Lashley won was because of Leo Rush? He was out there anyway. Instead of doing this unnecessary 50-50 shit. Why not? But, whatever. So on to the main show. The first match we got was the finals of the Mixed Match Challenge. we have the team of Fabulous Truth, R-Truth, and Carmella taking on Mahalisha, Jinder Mahal, and Alicia Fox with the Singh brothers in their corner. I was paying attention to the Mixed Match Challenge for the first few weeks, but then after a while, I just kind of lost interest, and then guys started getting injured and taken out. Teams were thrown together at the last minute. It just became just kind of a waste of time for me to want to watch. But yeah, it came down to the two teams with the worst records of the entire tournament, or at least two of them. And in this match, we got a dance break, which of course Truth and Carmella are famous for. At one point, Truth stole Alicia Fox's captain's hat or whatever she has. But in the end, Truth and Jinder fought out to the outside of the ring, and then Carmella locked Alicia in the Code of Silence submission hold and got the win for her team. So her and R-Truth win the Mixed Match Challenge, and by virtue of winning the Mixed Match Challenge, they won an all-expenses paid vacation and are both the number 30 entries in the men's and women's Royal Rumble matches. So I'm sure that'll be comedy. Maybe the women's match will go on first and R-Truth will try to come out at number 30 in the women's match and get confused or whatever. I don't know. They'll probably play it up for comedy. But after the match, they got interviewed by Kayla Braxton, wondering where their vacation would be, and Truth said he already said where their vacation is going to be, and he said it's going to be at WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, to which Carmella was very disappointed in for a whole, 50 seconds, so when she went right back to smiling, just shaking her head. So if they film skits at HQ, it might be kind of funny on SmackDown, but yeah, kind of a waste here. Up next was the triple threat match for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. The Bar taking on the Usos and the New Day. Excellent match here. Three of the best teams in the entire company. Throw in the Revival and you got all four of them. But yeah, a great match. All six of these guys know each other very well in that ring, and they know how to put in that good work, and that's exactly what happened in here. The Usos were probably the most over out of all the teams in this match. At one point they had their own little super kick party moment, and got a huge pop for that. Cesaro managed to do his Cesaro swing on, I believe, Xavier Woods, and that got a pretty good reaction. And he then locked Woods. Oh, I'm sorry, he had on Kofi. He did the swing on Kofi, locked him in the sharpshooter, and then Woods went through the ropes, dove through the ropes. He was on the apron, and he dove through the ropes into the ring to give Cesaro a DDT to break it. Then later on, Woods hit his elbow drop, and Jey Uso managed to dive in and break it. The crowd broke out into an applause for the match at this point, because up to this point, this was a really, really great match. And then the finish came where Woods was outside the ring on the apron. He was gearing up for some kind of move, and or just trying to get back into the ring. Cesaro was on the floor, and he was tugging at Woods' leg, and Woods kind of swatted him away. And then while Woods was trying to get back into the ring through the ropes, Sheamus caught him with a bro kick right smack dab into the face. Got the 1-2-3. The Bar retain the SmackDown Tag Team titles, as I figured they would. So like I said, a really good match here. As great as these teams are, I am a bit sick of seeing them all face each other and compete for the title, so hopefully we get some new blood in there going into 2019. Might I suggest Sanity? You know, I'm not the biggest Sanity fan, but I mean, they're there, so might as well use them, right? Or call up a team from NXT, like a team that's not doing anything, like, what's it called, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, the Street Profits. Put them on the show, let them feud with the Bar, maybe, I don't know. Up next, much to my shock, was the TLC match to determine Baron Corbin's role as GM going forward. It was going to be Baron Corbin versus Braun Strowman. If Braun wins, he gets his Universal Championship match with Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble, and Baron Corbin will no longer be the general manager elect. But if Corbin won, then he would be named the permanent Raw general manager. And of course, Braun Strowman on TV got taken out by Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley a few weeks ago, but of course in real life he had genuine elbow surgery, and no one was really sure if he was gonna be able to compete in this match. So in this match, the build-up was mainly Corbin saying that he was gonna win by forfeit, and he was in the ring. He had Heath Slater, who got moved into the role of referee on the Raw roster a few weeks ago. So he was out there as the referee. He was instructed to count. They rang the bell. He started to count. And all of a sudden, Braun Strowman's music hits. Strowman comes out in a sling and says, like, this match is no disqualification, which means anything goes, which means I can have help in beating you. Never thought Braun Strowman would need help in beating somebody, but he did get it in the form of Apollo Crews, Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, and Finn Balor, all with steel chairs in hand. And then Heath Slater, who had the referee shirt on, he ripped the shirt off, and he took a swing at Baron Corbin. And then everybody got in the ring and started to just lay into Corbin with chairs. Corbin rolled out of the ring. He tried to, escape up the rampway, but then out came Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's music hit to a huge pop. Haven't seen him since he got basically murdered at the hands of Drew McIntyre all those weeks ago. So he came out there, got a chair off of one of the chairs that were kind of set up on the stage, started to swing on Corbin, just hitting him all the way back down to the ring. Everyone started to hit their finishers on him. The moonsault neckbreaker combo from Roode and Gable, frog splash from Apollo, angle slam, coup de grace, and then of course Braun Strowman came in. Heath Slater put the referee shirt back on. Don't know why he took it off in the first place, but he put it back on, and then he got in the ring, Braun Strowman that is, and he put one foot on the chest of Baron Corbin, pinned him 1, 2, 3, and won the match. And then JoJo announced that Baron Corbin is no longer the general manager, and they made it official that Braun Strowman will be challenging Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble. That should be an interesting one to talk about when we get closer to that show, as to who I think will and should win that match to go on to WrestleMania with the championship. So that'll be an interesting discussion when that time comes. But as of right now, Baron Corbin is no longer the general manager. Of course, they can always just have Vince McMahon come out on Raw this Monday and reverse that decision, as Corey Graves was begging would happen, but I doubt that's going to happen. Vince is coming back. He's going to shake things up or whatever, and I'm sure that's going to include him naming a new general manager and telling Baron Corbin that he's fired. Whether he puts Kurt Angle back in that spot, gives it to Alexa Bliss, gives it to someone brand new, I don't know. But it's going to take a lot more than just naming a new general manager to truly shake things up on Monday Night Raw. But I guess this is the first step to that. So we'll see on Raw what happens. Up next, we had the tables match. It was Ruby Riott taking on Natalya. Of course, the whole basis of this feud has been Ruby mocking Natty and her dead father, of course, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. So a lot of personal stuff going on leading up to this match. I haven't really cared for much of this feud. And by much of, I mean all of it. I haven't watched a full episode of Raw in months, so I just haven't been paying close enough attention to this feud. But they had a pretty good match here. Natty ended up putting all the Riot Squad members, aside from, she did put all of them through a table, but before she finished off Ruby, she did put Liv and Sarah Logan through tables. She kind of charged. She was aiming for Ruby. She was going to charge at her and knock her off the apron through a table that was set up, but Liv Morgan pushed her out of the way, and then she ended up being the one to go through the table. And then later on, Natty power slammed Sarah Logan through a table that was out there. Ruby had this table that had an image of Jim the Anvil Neidhart on it, like a cutout body version of him plastered onto the table. So she was planning on using that to put Natty through it, but Natty managed to avoid getting put through that table. She locked Ruby in the sharpshooter, but then Ruby was climbing towards the table, the anvil table that was set up in the corner, and she kind of pushed it over so it leaned forward and knocked Natty in the back of the head, thus breaking the hold. Eventually, Natty went to the outside and she pulled out a table of her own that had Ruby's image on it. It was just a full body image of Ruby Riott plastered on. Then she also was out there to put on the Anvil's jacket. So she put on her dad's jacket, got back in the ring, started fighting back and forth with Ruby. There's a lot of close calls there in terms of who's going to go through the table. Then eventually it led to both women being up top on the top rope. Ruby was going for a Hurricane Rana on Natty, but then Natty, held on to her, lifted her up, and powerbombed her right off through the table with her image on it, and got the win. And then after the match, she stood tall, put on the kept the jacket on, put the glasses on, and pointed up. Big pop from the fans, and that was that. So I assume this feud is now over. I don't know where they move on to. Might I suggest another helping of Riot Squad versus Sasha Banks and Bayley? Because we clearly didn't get enough of that, right? Up next, we got Drew McIntyre and Finn Balor. This match was a lot of Drew McIntyre methodically beating the shit out of Finn Balor. Finn Balor had some hope spots here and there, but for the most part, McIntyre was kind of slow and evil in beating down Balor. At one point, McIntyre hit a Celtic Cross from the middle rope onto Balor, a sick thud when they both went down, but it was only good for a 2 count. The finish started to come when McIntyre was Balor was outside the ring, and then McIntyre was walking along the ring apron, and then Balor kind of shoved him down in between the apron and the ring skirts to start to rain down blows on him. Then Balor went up onto the ring apron. He started to walk along, and then McIntyre kind of sidestepped him and gave him a leg sweep, and Balor fell face first onto the apron, and then McIntyre just kind of threw him back in the ring. It looked like he was about to finish him off when out of nowhere the referee was distracted with looking over Balor, and McIntyre turns around, and out of nowhere it's Dolph Ziggler who gives McIntyre a super kick. Of course, Dolph and McIntyre randomly broke up a few weeks ago. Honestly, the match on this pay-per-view should have been McIntyre and Dolph if they were going to break him up, but whatever, he still made his appearance here. He got a chair and was getting ready to use it, but then McIntyre kind of kicked the chair into Dolph's face to make him look like even more of an idiot. He tossed Dolph into the ring, slowly got back in the ring, and was about to use the chair, but the referee was kind of distracting him, getting in his face, telling him not to use it. But then out of nowhere, Balor came in, gave him the drop kick into the corner, drop kicked the chair into McIntyre, and then went up top, hit the coup de grace, and got the win over Drew McIntyre. This is probably the second time Drew McIntyre has been pinned since returning to the main roster back in, May or something like that. So he's only had 2 pinfall losses since then, and they've come over both Dolph Ziggler and Finn Balor here. Definitely didn't expect Drew to lose here, but he looked very pissed after the match. Later on in the show, they showed a backstage segment with Finn Balor getting interviewed, getting interrupted by Dolph Ziggler, who was berating him for needing Dolph's help because he was being beat down and he was a failure and all that kind of stuff. Finn took great umbrage to that, and then Dolph kind of punched him and threw him into one of the crates back there. And then they announced later on that on Monday Night Raw we'll get a match between Dolph Ziggler and Finn Balor. So see, they don't need a GM to make the match. The match was just made. So you don't need GMs. You can keep Vince as your authority figure or whatever. You don't need a GM on TV. At least that's my opinion. But whatever. Good stuff there. So I assume McIntyre will just kill both of them on Raw. Up next, Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio in a chairs match. Of course, it was a chairs match, so there was a fuck ton of chairs being used in this match. I've loved Randy Orton beating down Rey Mysterio, stealing his mask and all that kind of stuff in this feud. So I was looking forward to this match. The match was okay. Nothing overly special. Of course, probably the best thing about this match happened early on when Rey, he does this sliding splash kind of thing. His opponent's laid out on the outside, so he slides through the bottom rope and lands right outside onto his opponent. A few weeks ago he did that and got caught with an RKO from Randy Orton, which I thought was a really cool move. So here Ray did it, but he had a steel chair with him on his torso. So when he slid right onto Randy with the chair. So I thought that was pretty cool. The finish came where there was a bunch of chairs lined up in a row. Randy was going for an RKO, but then Ray kind of wiggled his way out of it. Sent Randy face first into one of the chairs. Then he rolled, kind of sloppily, but still rolled Randy off of the chairs and into a position where he gave him a roll up and got the 1-2-3. So Rey Mysterio got a fluke victory over Rey Mysterio. Not the last roll up we would see on this show, but yeah, Rey Mysterio barely wins by the skin of his teeth on this show, and I think it's safe to say this feud is far from over. Next up, Ronda Rousey defending the Raw Women's Championship against Nia Jax. It was okay. It was much better than I expected. Obviously, Nia Jax is not all that good, and Ronda is still... she's really good. Ronda's really, really good. So, but you just don't know here. And at Money in the Bank, they had their match, which was pretty good. This one was, I think, pretty much longer than that one was. It was all right. Ronda, she was, throwing some strikes and all that kind of stuff early on, but eventually she tried to lock in the arm bar, but then Nia caught her with a power bomb, and that was pretty much the end of her. And she proceeded to pretty much beat down Ronda Rousey throughout the majority of the rest of the match. At one point, Nia hit a Samoan drop on Ronda, but it was only good for a 2 count. Then she tried to go for the Samoan drop off of the middle rope, but then Ronda either did like a sunset flip or she kind of flipped through it and managed to powerbomb Nia off of the top rope, or the middle rope that is, and right smack dab in the ring. Of course, she didn't do it with all her strength. She had the ropes and stuff to help her, but it still counts. It was only good for a 2 count, though. Tamina provided a distraction when Ronda was trying to lock in the armbar. Ronda went over to try to kick her away, and then Nia was going for some kind of move. She was trying to go for her face breaker punch, the one that broke Becky Lynch's face, as WWE will tell you. But Ronda kind of ducked that, and then threw a little mix up there. Ronda managed to get Nia in a position to lock her in the armbar. She got her set up, kissed Nia's fist, and then cinched the armbar in, and that was enough for Nia. She tapped out immediately, and Ronda gets the big win, so she's still the champion. And then after the match, they go to a quick commercial, come back, and they show Nia walking backstage, and I knew exactly what this was leading to, and they didn't disappoint. Becky Lynch was right there, punched Nia and gave her like a whole combo, and sent her into the wall, and then left. She told her, keep my name out your mouth or whatever. So that right after Nia losing, hopefully this is a sign that her days in the title picture are over, at least for now. Up next, probably, like I said earlier, the best WWE Championship match we have seen all year, and it came between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. Of course, like many of you, I have been in love with heel, evil, hippie, environmentalist Daniel Bryan, and he's been doing tremendous work, some of the best promos of his career, going back to his Ring of Honor days. He's been awesome, and he continued to be awesome in this match. He and AJ had a tremendous match. Early on, AJ suffered a rib injury at the hands of Daniel Bryan when he tried to do a dive over the top rope. He dove over, and AJ caught him with a kick right to the midsection, and he proceeded to sell his ribs throughout the rest of the match. Bryan was very methodical and, slow with a lot of his wrestling parts of it, slowed down AJ very much so, and was a great technician in there, as both were. This was a great technical match, which is why it was so good, in my opinion. At one point, Bryan started to do what was once the yes kicks are now deemed the no kicks, and when he geared up for that last one, he came around with full force and just knocked AJ right in the side of the head. It looked brutal. AJ was going for the phenomenal forearm. He got up for it. He went for it, but then Bryan tried to catch him with another kick again, but this time AJ caught him, and then he hit him with a dragon screw to try to tweak his leg and go after his leg, much like Bryan has been doing to him for the past few weeks. And then he locked in the half crab, but Bryan managed to get out of that and lock in the label lock, which AJ managed to get out of. Then Bryan hit a sick kick to the side of AJ's head. AJ hit a Pele kick, and then both men were down. AJ eventually went up, hit a springboard, but it was only good for a 2 count. Then he managed to lock in the calf crusher, and this one really got me because the way he was torquing and locking that bad boy in, it looked like Bryan was getting ready to tap out. Bryan sold that extremely well, and that was a great near fall. I mean, not a near fall, but a near submission, I guess, but it got me. But once AJ tried to reapply it, Bryan kind of rolled out of the ring. He rolled back in and rolled out the other side, and while out there, AJ hit a forearm off of the security wall and then got him back in the ring. He was going for yet another forearm from the ropes. When he dove off, he almost ran into the referee, had to, move himself away from the referee. Bryan was gearing up for the running knee, which AJ moved from, and then AJ went for the inside cradle, but then Bryan reversed it into his own inside cradle and got the 1-2-3. So Bryan retains the WWE Championship. Like I said, this is an excellent match. My words don't do it justice. This was a great match. I very much so loved it. Probably my favorite match AJ Styles has had on pay-per-view all year. I liked the matches with Nakamura, at least some of them. The matches he had with Joe, especially the one at SummerSlam, was really good. And they had a really good match at Super Showdown too. But yeah, of all the matches on pay-per-view AJ has had this year, this was easily his best. And pretty much a clean finish here. So Daniel Bryan, the heel Bryan, gets to keep the title. He did say before in an interview on YouTube that he was on the YouTube channel that he was gonna replace the leather championship with a more environmentally safe or whatever championship strap. So hopefully we see that on SmackDown this week. Up next was the Intercontinental Championship match between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. Early on, I was trying to get into the match, but I was distracted by the commentary between Corey Graves and Renee Young. Graves was just hounding Renee, talking about, life at home and their marriage and all that kind of stuff, and Michael Cole was trying to butt in and say, leave her alone, enough about her marriage and all that kind of stuff, and Renee was defending Dean to a certain degree. Not extremely well, but she was trying her best. But, yeah, hopefully Renee's role in this whole Dean Ambrose story can increase over time, but if not, stop trying to do that. But whatever. The match itself was pretty good, but the fans did not think so after a while. They were doing a lot of good stuff, but it was pretty slow for a good chunk of it. And eventually the fans broke out into a "This is boring" chant. A match between Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins got "This is boring" chants. I couldn't believe it. They started to chant for Becky, and they were just booing the match in general. I don't know if they were booing because of Ambrose or what was going on, but they just were not happy with this match after a while. Ambrose, he blocked a frog splash attempt from Seth Rollins with his knees, and that was okay. Later on, Rollins went up for the Falcon Arrow and managed to hit it, but it was only good for a 2 count. Then Rollins was setting up Ambrose for a kick to the face while Ambrose was on his knees, but then Ambrose put his fist out, almost like camaraderie, like, hey, we're good. Please don't do this. And then Rollins kind of looked at that and just got pissed off, gave him the kick anyway, went to the outside and set him up for the running powerbomb into the security wall, the same move that injured Finn Balor's shoulder 2 years ago and basically cost Balor his big push. Then he gets Ambrose back in the ring, starts to talk shit to him, gets in his face and all that kind of stuff, goes over by the ropes and is just standing there looking, all pissed off and stuff. I'm like, okay, you setting yourself up for failure, and that's exactly what happened. He turns around, he's going for the stomp, but then Ambrose immediately locks him in position, drops him for the dirty deeds, and gets the 1-2-3. So Dean Ambrose, the new Intercontinental Champion, I think it's his third reign as champion now. So, yeah, a big win for Dean Ambrose here. He gets the belt. The fans were booing and they were showing shocked expressions on people's faces and all that kind of stuff, but hey, the fans did not like this match. And I remember a couple years ago at SummerSlam being in the crowd for the Seth Rollins Finn Balor match that I mentioned, and they weren't too, well, not, it wasn't the match, it was the Universal Championship belt. That was the first time they showed it, and they were spending the match talking shit about that belt instead of paying attention to the actual match. Earlier this year, in the Iron Man match at Extreme Rules between Seth and Dolph Ziggler, the fans were only concerned with talking about the clock and doing the Rumble thing with that. So those two, and now this, Seth is over, but the fans, they aren't always in love with his matches. This feud has been kind of a disappointment so far, so hopefully now that Ambrose is the champion and Rollins can chase him, maybe that might add an extra spark to it. Like I said, maybe it can add Renee Young to things in a way. Maybe that can add some kind of dramatic element to things. Otherwise, we're just going to get more matches, and that's probably about it. But hey, I'm sure they'll be better than this one. And then the main event, the rightful main event, the TLC triple threat match for the SmackDown Women's Championship, Becky Lynch against Charlotte Flair and Asuka. This match was insane. But I loved it. It was a lot of great stuff. One of the best things early on was Asuka powerbombing Charlotte off of a ladder through a table in the corner. And it looked like Charlotte, the back of her head kind of landed right into the table. And kind of hit pretty hard. That wasn't the worst thing to happen to Charlotte in this match, because a little bit later, Becky had both Charlotte and Asuka laid out on an announce table outside. She climbed up a ladder and was gearing up for a leg drop. So she dove off, had her leg drop position. Asuka rolled off, and Becky went right smack dab into Charlotte, literally. Like, not kind of grazed her a little bit. Now, she literally fell right on Charlotte's midsection, right in the middle of her. I think even Corey Graves pointed out she bounced a little bit off of Charlotte and just landed right smack dab onto her. And Charlotte let out an a very inappropriate word because she was clearly in pain. Thought her ribs were broken. That was sick. But she came back into it. She got the kendo stick and started to wail on both women. Asuka eventually got the stick and started to cane Becky with it. And then when she was kind of standing tall, minding her own business, Charlotte came out of nowhere and speared Asuka into the security wall, not through it. It didn't really explode like usual. It kind of just bented, so it looked a little less impressive. Then it came down to Charlotte and Becky for a little bit. They were going back and forth. Charlotte beat down Becky to a point where she laid her out on a table right outside the ring, and she went up top and delivered a swanton off of the top rope onto Becky through the table. So another crazy spot. Then we had Charlotte and Asuka, the two of them fighting in the ring, up top, on top of the ladder, just going back and forth, raining blows on each other. Eventually, Becky got back in. She had her own ladder and set it up right next to it. She started to climb. Asuka got knocked off, and once Charlotte saw what Becky was doing, she transferred herself over to Becky's ladder, and the two of them were up there fighting and punching each other back and forth, when all of a sudden, the crowd perks up and starts looking over at the entranceway, and who do we see walking down to the ring but the Raw Women's Champion Ronda Rousey, who has beef with both Charlotte and Becky. You know, Becky talking shit and attacking her before Survivor Series. Charlotte basically pillmanizing and beating her down with a kendo stick and shit at Survivor Series. So, a beef with both women. So she came out there, she got in the ring, and she shoved the ladder over to send Becky and Charlotte crashing right down into the ring, into the ropes and all that kind of stuff. So they were laid out. The fans, of course, booed because Becky basically lost here because Asuka got back in. She climbed up the ladder and she retrieved the championship. So, Asuka is the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Big win for her. Very, very happy to see Asuka finally with the SmackDown Women's Championship after losing to Charlotte at WrestleMania earlier this year and losing her streak. And then those two god-awful matches with Carmella back-to-back months over the summer, failing there. It was good to see her finally win a big championship match here. Becky losing, I pretty much figured it was going to happen. I thought it was going to be Charlotte and that they would go with Charlotte as the champion. But hey, I can't argue with them putting the belt on Becky. On Asuka. I fear Charlotte will still get the belt at some point. And I also fear that my hopes of a singles main event match at WrestleMania between Becky Lynch and Ronda may have blown up in smoke, and we will get a triple threat. Whether it's the main event or not, that might be the match at WrestleMania. So, not completely thrilled with that, but it is what it is. Overall, like I said, thought this was a pretty good show. Once again, very happy that Asuka's the champion, and Becky being the badass to walk into the Royal Rumble and win it and then challenge Ronda for the championship at WrestleMania sounds like a pretty good idea to me. So hopefully that's the direction they go in. And, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Vince McMahon's going to be on Raw this week, so we'll see how much things shake up. We'll see if anything changes. I doubt it, but it should be interesting. We'll see if Bryan gets a new championship strap this week. So, yeah, that's the last WWE show of the year. Hopefully 2019 can bring us better days than the ones that we got this year. But, yeah, so that's it for me, and I will talk to all of you guys later.